afternoon and welcome to today's webinar. The OBBBA is here, and TipHaus and AllianceHCM have combined to put together a really nice presentation. Looking forward to having this conversation with Kirk today. My name is Bryan Gorman. I am the part of the franchise team here at AllianceHCM, been in the payroll space for about 27 years now, and excited to have some time with all of you today talking about this very important topic. So before we get started, I do have a quick disclaimer to review and read. So this presentation is for informational purposes only and does not constitute legal, tax, or accounting advice. Operators should consult their own legal, tax, and payroll advisors to understand how OBBBA and related regulations apply to their business. So excited to get started. I'm going to send this over to Kirk Grogan. He's the CEO and founder of TipHaus, and let him introduce himself.
Thank you, Bryan, and well done on the disclaimer there. It feels like you should be on some medical commercials or something.
Right, there we go.
Very, very professional, and thank you everyone for joining. Our second one, thankful to host with Alliance and the great team over there. And it was a large enough success, and we got a lot of outreach to run a second because some people missed it. Really excited to bring us in here today with it. As Bryan mentioned, I am COO and co-founder over here at TipHaus, a tip management platform, if you're not familiar with us, and a great partner of Alliance, who's also been a fabulous to work with for. So excited to dive in and see what we've got going on here today with us. So
awesome. So Kirk, for our first question, for operators who keep hearing the phrase "no tax on tips," right? What's the simplest way to explain what OBBBA actually changes in that process? Sure.
First, no tax on tips is a fabulous political slogan, but it's a little bit of a misnomer. It's a little bit of simplified, let's say. So what I like to kind of reference is tips are still taxed. They, however, open up the opportunity for $25,000 in deductions for eligible tips. These have to be voluntary tips. We'll cover that as we go through today, of course. And it's for their federal tax bill. And so states' taxes still apply. You still see things like Medicaid and Medicare. Those taxes still apply. So number of items, again, no tax on tips. In 4 words, you can't cover all the nuance that the U.S. tax bills require. Mm-hmm. Also, obviously, benefits on overtime, the premium portion of that. And then things like 100% depreciation sets are back. We won't cover much of that. I'm not going to pretend Bryan or I specialize on the accounting side of it from that standpoint in accounting law and how you handle depreciation, amortization, things of that nature. But if you are an operator and you weren't aware, this is news to you, I do encourage you to look into that as well, because there are some major benefits for operations there as well. Realistically with it though, positive thing for the industry, by and large, 100%. And so, there's a number of pressure points that are out there in the space. You see a list of them here, wage increases, tip expectations, compliance. This does offer some relief on these areas if we do things right. And so I am really excited to dive into a couple of those and what it might look like today.
So Kirk, why don't the processes that worked, say, back in 2019 through 2022, really hold up anymore?
Sure. Great question. The pandemic shifted a lot, right? There was mass layoffs and closures, and then there was a mass rehiring. Operators were scaling quickly. There was also a massive adoption of technology, right, during that frame. And so with it, we got a little more dialed in on things, whether it's complex tip pools, whether it's, blended or hybrid workforces, all of those items where we had manual systems that, bluntly, we could just kind of brute force. We could say, Kathy will sit in the office and figure it out. John will figure it out. We'll work through these things. Now we are in a much more digital age where, transparency is expected. We're getting pressures in a lot of different directions where staff wants fairness at all times. Regulators are out there tightening compliance and shifting things. OBBBA is adding, of course, new reporting requirements on top of that. And bluntly, there's legal implications, which is lawyers, class action pieces that are really getting aggressive. And I've realized that if a restaurant isn't on top of this, there may be a large class action payment for them and a tiny fraction of a percent for the employees that they represent, which is typically how that goes, unfortunately. But it is the nature of the beast of what we kind of see right now. So lots and lots of changes. Tipping used to be very informal. It used to be something that we didn't really think a lot about as operators and owners. Maybe the employees keep it all, or it's a simple house pool. Now it's a major retention strategy. Employees have expectations and tons of job opportunities available to them, easier than ever to apply. So it's really onto the restaurants to make sure that they're managing it correctly, that they're turning this into an asset for themselves. And, really hopeful that everyone here today is able to take a couple things out. If you've never attended one of these before, we are very action oriented. So I'll walk you through a live TurboTax piece, and I look forward to people seeing that with it.
Awesome. So where, in your opinion, Kirk, do you think the operators are feeling the most pressure today? Is it fairness, transparency, compliance, or essentially is it all the above?
It's certainly all of the above, plus probably 10 others. Right? It's a tough time always for operators of restaurants and hospitality. I feel like that line could apply at any point during history, but I do think it's relevant today as well. So looking at it realistically of the three, I think compliance is probably going to be among your top. And if it's not, it's a little scary that you don't view it that way. Making sure that you're managing things with compliance for OBBBA is incredibly particular. There's so much money left on the table from employees for not filing correctly. Understanding like what OBBBA shifts, and obviously I know we'll cover a little bit of that, but how we're thinking about overtime, how we're thinking about how service charges versus voluntary tips handled, because service charges are not eligible for deductions. So whether it's compliance in the legal sense of, hey, I'm going to get in legal trouble, or whether it's complying and taking advantage of these items, I think that's kind of the massive piece. It's shifting actively, right? Came into effect in mid-2025. This is our first year where we're doing retroactive filing for all of 2025, and now 2026 and forward. It should take place on every pay period if you're doing things right. So I want to make sure people are aware and armed up as best as possible, let's say.
Absolutely. So for operators who may not be familiar, can you break down the OBBBA at a high level?
I can. So, you've heard it, one big beautiful bill.
Yes, correct.
Yes, exactly that. And so there's a number of names for it, but summary is it was a bipartisan bill. Both Biden and Trump expressed that if it came across their desk, they would push it forward. And the intention here is to put more money back into the workforce for service and hospitality industry. Emphasis on traditionally tipped roles. So this is servers, bartenders, people like that. Also salons and other things, if any of you dabble outside of the space. But it also covers things like overtime, as we mentioned. And the important piece is it's just that premium portion of overtime. You look on the slide on the right, we'll kind of cover that. It reduces your tax liability by $25,000 per year for voluntarily left tips, and by $12,500 per individual on overtime, just the premium. So if you get paid 1.5x for overtime, it's just that half, right? That 50% extra on top. That is a reduction. An important piece, though, that I think some people miss here is this is in addition to your, maximum deduction available, right? Many service employees say, I'm not going to go through and itemize every deduction anyways, right? Because I'm just going to take the maximum deduction, right? That's going to be more than what I could get to on my own. This is in addition to it. It doesn't compete with that. So I've seen a lot of people say, I already take the maximum deduction, I'm covered. It's like, no, you're still leaving thousands of dollars on the table here. And I've seen it firsthand. I went and worked with a bunch of people. That's where a lot of my screenshots will come from later that we're going to show off here.
Sure.
So it's been a great piece.
Awesome. Now, can you walk us through how the overtime deduction works essentially, and then who actually would benefit from that?
Yeah, absolutely. So any employees who regularly work overtime are going to benefit from this. Okay. And where to think about this is it's got to be an hourly employee, cannot be salaried. And we'll touch on that in a little bit, but there will be a little bit of a debate of, hey, I work 60 hours a week and I'm salaried. Those 20 hours don't go to me. What do I do? Can I reclassify myself? Government's not going to like that. They've already specified they want it, but I expect to see that occur. More importantly, though, is hourly employees regularly working overtime, they're going to see a massive benefit. And so you get to stress that to your team members. And if there's a theme I can cover all today, it is as owners, operators, managers, whatever we are here on the call, as we've got almost 400, I think, attendees joining us here today. It is going to be on you to make sure that you're taking advantage of this by sharing this information with your staff, by making sure that we've got a great resource guide that'll go after all of these items. But your employees, if we're zooming out and being honest, I remember when I started my career at 18, 19 working, I was not paying attention to taxes on this level. And so we want to make sure that you're paying attention to it. But yes, major caveat to that is it is only towards FLSA, so Fair Labor and Standards Act, meaning 40 hours in a week. Like if we take a state like California, where it's anything over 8 hours in a day is overtime, that is actually not eligible for this. It's a really interesting piece, but it really only applies to the federal guidelines. It does not apply to anything that states have put in. So there's going to be patchwork. There's going to be a lot of having to work through it and think through it with it, but just be mindful of that.
Perfect. From a compliance perspective, then, what are the key compliance challenges operators should be aware of regarding federal versus state taxes? Like you mentioned, that's a huge point. So what are some of those challenges?
Yeah, I think that's going to be the biggest one. Again, is bearing in mind that state laws and no tax on tips doesn't apply to states. Now, several states are actively trying to mirror the OBBBA on a federal level. So they're coming in and saying, hey, if that's how it's handled on a federal level, we as a state are going to treat it the same. So there's not going to be state income taxes as well on voluntary tips, et cetera. That's going to be the biggest piece. But from a true compliance standpoint, where it really is going to get messy again is this patchwork, where you're looking at, misunderstandings of, hey, there's no tax on tips. Why am I getting, well, that's not true. Medicare and Medicaid are still taxed, right? State taxes still apply, these items. And then it's making sure how you file this. And this is where owners and operators can set their employees up for success. Are we using box 7? Are we using box 14 on the W-2? Are we using box 12 with the codes TT and TP, ticks, overtime and tips respectively? Are we making it easy for these employees to have access to it? And again, I look at compliance not just in the strict legal boundary. You definitely want to adhere to that. But we also want to adhere to it in the sense of helping our employees comply with this item, because it is only an advantage to our staff. It's only an advantage to our retention strategies, to how we recruit, to making sure that we understand that you can make great money in the service industry and it's going to have lower taxes if we convey that information, right? That's not on the employees to go learn on their own. We'd love for that to be the case, but that's really where I see this coming into play.
Perfect.
And
so you mentioned, earlier, Kirk, you mentioned the death of the service charge, right? So why are we seeing that shift happen now?
Yeah. So service charges experienced a massive revival resurgence, where restaurants, a lot of groups were able to bring in service charges. They were able to classify them as revenue and then therefore do what they wish with that money, meaning whether it went towards benefits for the employees, whether it went towards upkeep, whatever it might be. We saw this service charge model kind of come into play here, where the restaurant is able to handle it as they wish. This OBBBA bill has made a very, very clean divide and said it must be a voluntarily left tip. And so if you are a restaurant, whether it's you only do it on large parties or you do it on all checks or you do it at certain hours or shifts, whatever your situation is, nothing that is going to the employees from that period is eligible for tax deductions. And so I fully expect, whether it's, this week, this month, or at the end of this year, is just as likely, when employees look back and they say, hey, we're using a service charge model, and that means I got no additional tax deduction. I didn't get up to $25,000 deducted. I'm like, oh, let's talk about this, manager. Let's sit down and let's think this through, because at the end of the day, where they previously liked it, it's guaranteed, it's easy, it's simple to run through. Now is a very different ball game for how they're going to be handling things. It really impacts the amount of money going in their pocket. So I do expect service charge to kind of have a very limited use case. Let's say there's no way in the world I see it exist or it dropping from restaurants forever entirely, but it is going to be reduced significantly as employees kind of figure out that it does take more money out of their pocket at the end of the year.
Okay. And we see on the slide here, this, the reverse classification, the idea of this, it obviously really interesting, but what's driving managers to consider hourly roles?
Yeah, this is going to be really, really interesting. First of all, and I should specify, the government does not like this. They've already specified that they're going to try to pursue this and they're going to try to fight these. So if you're a manager on here and you've got the idea, I'm going to go chat with my GM right now or my owner, be mindful of that. But this is really going to come down to, managers that are salaried that work regularly 50, 60 hours a week. This is that overtime portion. And you say, well, now if I was just hourly, and even if my hourly netted me even slightly less than my salary did, that $12,500 deduction may take me on a net basis from over the top of what my gross is when I'm paying taxes on it. So we're going to see some managers who do the numbers, look at their math, and they say, well, hang on a minute here. My net take home pay is higher when I have a tax deduction if I'm hourly, because the overtime I'm not paying on that 0.5x on the end. So it's going to shift a lot of things for people. If there are salaried workers, or especially if people who recently got promoted into a salary position, they may start pushing to kind of drop back down into an hourly, even if it's the same cost for the restaurant. And that's where their wins are going to come. Is, hey, the restaurant, you're not paying me a cent more. It's just that I get to keep more of this from paying fewer taxes. And that's going to be an interesting battle to see how the government plays out with it. Sure. They said they're going to dive into it, but we'll see exactly how they want to pursue it.
Perfect. So what are restaurants most exposed to compliance risk under the OBBBA regulations?
Yeah, good question. So exposed largely how you're tracking tips, how you're classifying tips, how you're reporting overtime. All of those are going to be the biggest pieces. Can you produce the documentation to the IRS when they require it and they ask for it? And again, we're looking at box one being all of your earnings for a server or a bartender no longer really works for them. You've got to break out what was voluntary tips, what was service charges if needed, what's overtime, et cetera. All of those items. So you're going to have to make sure your tech stack, and I'm going to dive ahead, and I see the third bullet point here already that we're talking about. Sure. Is your tech stack absolutely becomes mission critical. Mm-hmm. If you kind of have this one size fits all where it's not the best at anything, but it's pretty decent at all, you may want to take a step back. You may want to find something that is excellent when it comes to scheduling, hourly, payroll, tip management systems, all of these items. You're going to want someone who is specific to it, and not to toot horns here with it, Brian, but obviously if your groups and anyone you're working with isn't talking about OBBBA right now for you and trying to help out, maybe at least search the market a little bit, sure. Jump online, maybe book a demo with one of us later. We'll see, but how it goes.
Yeah, absolutely. So what kind of mistakes could create tax or legal issues for operators as they're trying to track all of this?
How they handle service charges is going to be the biggest one. How you're tracking overtime, and that's for the operators themselves. I think where the operators are going to do themselves a massive disservice is saying, well, the employees have to figure this out on their own, as we alluded to. Yes, they do. The employees ultimately are the ones who have to figure this out. But if your turnover skyrockets by 30-40% because everyone's leaving to a restaurant that makes it frictionless to do it, they've classified it accordingly, they've got it on a W-2 right, they see night and day difference of how easy it is to save $3,500 more a year when I'm working over here than the restaurant I'm currently at, then it becomes your issue as an operator, right? Turnover is never fun. It's a constant issue. So we want to be mindful of that and how we're going to approach it. I think that's going to be your greatest issue. There's the basic pieces. Is your company handling tips, overtime, gratuity service charges? Are they handling those correctly? Those are your baseline. If you are doing those correctly, are you making it easy and accessible for your employees? That's step two. And I see very, very few people taking realistically. So
sure. And you mentioned a little bit about the tech stack, and my next question is really around like manual spreadsheets and doing this manually and tracking this manually. Obviously it's going to be risky under the new framework. And maybe can you speak to that a little bit if someone's still doing this manually, using your tech stack to really help automate this process, right?
Yes. Simple answers: don't use spreadsheets anymore. They are too easily manipulated. And I don't even mean intentionally. A manager goes in and trying to commit fraud. They fat finger a key, right? Formula gets adjusted. But the problem is, partly with the spreadsheet too, the liability is entirely on you. If you've got a tech system that has an issue go wrong, it's on them, and you're able to proceed that or go with insurance on it. But it's this audit record that is seamless, that you're specializing in, and that you have a resource to go ask questions to. It's something they're staying on top of. A spreadsheet is it's always been, tough. I think Excel is the greatest tool that is never used for the right reasons, right? It does everything. And we're using it for things that it wasn't designed for. And when it comes to potential lawsuits, potential frustrations with employees, managing hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars through it, not the best use case for it at that time. So, I'd like to see more people step away and really review that tech stack that they have there.
No, absolutely. So around action items, though, what immediate steps should operators take to review and prepare their systems for the OBBBA compliance?
Sure. With that, it's auditing. Start just and take a step back. Don't get attached to anything. Just take a step back and say, hey, man, what do we use right now? What's our system? Are there any gaps? All right. Are you doing tip tracking and overtime reporting correctly? Like if you looked at it and you said, hey, we're going to submit this, Is this accurate? Do we know what we're doing? Is our systems tracking this accordingly? Great. Then you can look at the W-2, like ask an employee if you're not seeing it regularly. If you're a manager and you have a payroll team, accounting team, whatever it may be, like ask one of your employees, ask your payroll team to see what it looks like. What did the W-2 look like? Did we put everything in box 1? Did we utilize box 7 at all? Did we utilize box 14 at all? Okay, now you know. And now these questions and what you're looking for allows you to, when you're chatting with other groups, to really see what it is that is going on. You'll see on point 2, we talk like it's going to be code TT and code TP respectively for overtime and tips. And you want to track that for your employees, or at least give them a tool. The same thing like that spreadsheet example. Employees don't have access to go into that spreadsheet anytime they want to see their year's tips and figure out how I can enter that into TurboTax or whatever my tax software is and get these deductions. They don't have any access to that. So you want to make sure that they have that tool and that ability to do so.
Absolutely. So you mentioned that earlier, the W-2 TurboTax example. So what should staff be aware of when filing their 2025 W-2, with TurboTax under the OBBBA rules?
Don't just blindly click and go forward. That's the number one thing. I've got an example coming up, and we'll know exactly what it looks like, because you'll see here, we kind of put some guidance on it, but I like learning from real world scenarios. But it's very easy to just submit your W-2 as usual. Box 1 is this total, enter your totals here, click, 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 done, and feel great about it. And you don't realize that, TurboTax and all the tax softwares implemented a flow for OBBBA for the service industry. It's not a big glaring red button that says, don't forget to click me. It's a very subtle thing that, if you're just pressing next, you're going to miss really, really quickly. So, I'll show you exactly where it looks like and what it is here in just a moment. But the biggest piece, as always, is, man, please just chat with your staff. Make sure you're letting them know that this is coming and that they need to be mindful of it. If they're just doing it like they filed it every other year, again, they're going to leave thousands of dollars on the table here. So I want to make sure that we avoid that.
Sure. Absolutely. So what should employees look for on their W-2s to maximize their deductions?
Box 7 and 14, if they are empty, that's normal, because a lot of groups, it got changed in the middle. But if they are normally empty, and they are, and all of your earnings are in box 1, you need to make that adjustment as an employee. And as a manager, operator, owner, whatever you are here today, you need to stress this to your employees. There are $25,000 in tip deductions available, meaning it takes their tip liability down by $25,000. So you can save up to, I think the highest I've seen is around $5,000 coming back to the employees, but significant for this
absolutely
class of individuals, right? I mean, we want to make sure we're keeping more of our own money here. So when you're looking for it, if everything is in box 1, like it has been in every year previously, because that was the standard, what they need to be able to determine is what were their voluntary tips, whether that's coming from you, the manager, whether you use a tip program at TipHaus or others that breaks it out for them and shows it to them, or whether it's something that you're working with them to make sure they get them that information. Hey, come in and I'm going to write it down for you. We'll do this. But whatever it may be, if they cannot figure out their voluntarily given tips and overtime as it applies, they have no tools to go succeed on this. So this is where, yes, I always hear operators, it's on the employees. We actually don't have to do much this time. Mm-hmm. Accurate. You don't, but you should. You should set them up for success here. So I want to make sure that we're always looking at that. And Brian, if you don't mind, I'm actually going to show you exactly what it looks like.
Absolutely.
I know we got this in here. So I went and sat with several of our employees that use TipHaus. And I said, hey, can I sit with you while you file taxes? I just want to make sure you're taking advantage of it. I want to make sure you understand how to use the system. I want to see what your W-2 from your restaurant looks like. And so once you file, you click the next, you enter all your information from your W-2 as you normally do. This screen comes up. And I will say that openly, the line that I hate the most on this is right there on the left box. Most of these are uncommon, but we still have to ask. Not anymore. They need to get rid of that line because these are very common. This is one of the largest workforces in the United States here. So, and then you see it's not even necessarily the top one. Overtime is there. Tips not reported on my W-2. And then it's the third box here. Tips included in box 1 of my W-2, but not in boxes 7 or 14. And so if you're seeing that with the red circle on it, that box must be checked. If you check that, it will prompt you to go into the screen that you see on the right here. Take another look at the tips from your W-2. And then they specify, hey, we show your total tips from box 7 as 0. Is that correct? No, I need to change this amount. You click that box, and then it will say, reported tips from your restaurant name at the very bottom. And where you see that red bold text, That's where they enter their tips, right? So again, if you're using an Excel sheet, you got to get this information to them. If they have a tip management platform with a mobile app like Tip, it'll break it down for them. Whatever the means is to get the employees this information, this is the steps they have to do. And I cannot stress again enough that I'm looking for this. I'm looking over the shoulder as we're filing this with several employees. I'm walking them through it. And this is TurboTax specifically, these screenshots. Okay. Of course, but we still almost missed it, right? We still almost missed that this was the screen that it was, just because, again, it kind of stresses, let's check for some uncommon situations. No, this is very prevalent and common now. When you do that, you click this. In this exact example, this employee saved $2,731 or got back $2,731 just from finding these two little boxes to click and entering the information. Massive, massive amount of money.
Wow. Oh, no, absolutely. Absolutely. So what steps should employees take, if they miss deductions on their 2025 filings?
Great question. And we had actually, Bryan, we chatted about hosting this after April 15th. I thought, this is very timely and we need to get this information out there before most people file. Sure. I guiltily suspect most people are procrastinators like I am, and they do it on the last day here. But yeah, exactly. So if you have already filed, if you've got some, high achievers, early achievers on your team that said, December 31st, great, it's over, I can get started. It's not too late for them at all. What they is, and it's a very, very common scenario. It's called Form 1040X, and it corrects errors. It's going to be an amendment to your return. So it's not just for tips. This has been used forever. It's a common use case. Hey, I misfiled. I forgot an income source. I did whatever it may be. However, in this case, it's a great tool for you to inform your employees about. And same thing as I went through with an employee on this, we identified the form and looked at it. I did not actually get to sit with them for filing it, because if we read here, step number 1 is before you file 1040X, you must wait for your filing to be accepted. So they'll notify you, they'll send you a refund, they'll tell you, you paid the correct amount, whatever it is in your tax situation, what you owed or didn't owe. You must wait for that to be completed, and then you will file 1040X, an amendment. You will re-enter the tips from box 1 that qualify for OBBBA. You'll confirm your occupation code matches customarily tipped role. This is another piece about OBBBA we didn't cover earlier, but it's only for roles that commonly receive tips. You can't take someone who is a salaried or hourly wage and say, well, you're making $0 an hour now, but I'll make up for it in tips. Right. Sure. You don't get those deductions. So then you submit your amended return, and the IRS has come out and said that they understand that there will be a higher volume of these related to this specific instance. And so they are intent on filing them and getting them in quickly, getting you your money back quickly for these instances if you overpaid or if you were owed a larger refund. So a fabulous tool, again, to remind people out there that even if they've already filed, they still have an avenue to make sure that they're recovering more of their money. And again, nothing will make you feel like a hero and people love you at your restaurant as a manager, owner, operator, whatever you are. If all of your staff suddenly get back an extra $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, that's a huge win for you. So take the easy wins when they're given to you, guys.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. So looking ahead then to 2026, what's going to feel different for operators day to day? And then what should teams start doing now to stay ahead of this?
Good question. So 2026, as a reminder, this all went into effect July 4th, 2025, and it was retroactive. So it applied to Jan 1, 2025 to December 31st, 2025. That is why this year is so weird, because it was all filed at your end of year taxes, right? Going forward in 2026, and many of you should already know this, is it occurs on every pay period. They're getting more of their money back each pay period. They're going to be withholding or less of that. So it should be less of a bulk and chunk at the end of the year, and it should be more just interchange throughout the year, less noticeable for it. But the biggest piece is, of course, making sure your tips are accurately reported. These can be box 7, box 14. Most importantly, ongoing is going to be box 12. Again, code TT for qualified overtime, code TP for qualified tips, voluntarily given tips. So make sure you're paying attention to that. You can update your W-4s now. You can chat with your team members about updating their W-4s to show their withholdings and what they want to do, making sure things are getting tracked correctly, predictably. And again, the biggest piece teams can do, and as we look at 2026, choose the right partners, choose the right vendors. Restaurants have a million things to deal with every day. You should not be left solely figuring this out in an Excel spreadsheet on your own. come and chat with some partners who deal with it regularly and can take this off your plate for a very, very cheap fee for getting your time back and your money back to your employees.
No, absolutely. And then if operators want to help their staff actually benefit from this, Kirk, what should they prioritize?
That's a great question. So always, communication, and I can't stress this enough. It is going to be the most vital piece about this entire front is open lines of communication. You as a manager, owner, operator, you may say, well, I don't know all the information. I'm hesitant to start dialogue, give wrong information, whatever it is. Just start it. Just start the conversation and say, hey, I don't know that answer, but I'm going to go figure it out. And then forward it to us, forward it to, you all at Alliance. Let us work with you and let us tackle this. We're here as resources and tools for you all. We are live services. We're here to support. So the biggest piece though is dialogue, and you can set them up for success. Again, at box 7, box 12, box 14, the W-2s are all valid now and viable options. You need to make sure you're covering that out. You need to make sure you're looking at service charges and voluntary tips. Again, if you haven't already heard about this from your staff, it's getting around. People will figure out that, hey, man, I'm losing money because we're doing service charges because I'm not getting any tax savings. So that's a major piece for it. We're sharing a resource guide after the end of this, of course, that we've put together here for our attendees. That'll have those screenshots of TurboTax. Every tax software has some version of it. I do apologize that everyone seemed to use TurboTax, so I didn't get glimpses into the others.
Sure.
But every one of them will have it. So make sure that you stress to them, hey, all of your tip earnings are in box 1 because it changed mid-year. And so it's exactly like it always has been. Here's how much you earned in voluntary tips, guys. Here's how much you earned in overtime. Please make sure you know these amounts, check the boxes accordingly and enter them in. And you'll get a massive return on your savings with it. So as always, make sure you're using good quality payroll, resource management softwares, tip management softwares. Simplify your reporting, make sure you get it all and where you need. Chat with the members. Again, this is where I encourage you to put some pressure on your vendors, your partners, whoever you use. And if they are not openly having these conversations and dialogues, trying to make your life easy, have a blunt conversation with them, make some requests, ask some further questions. But again, if I get back to like step 1, open dialogue with your staff. You don't have to know all the answers. What you need to do is at least know all the questions, right? They're going to ask you the questions. Write them down, do whatever you have to do with it, but then go and try to solicit those answers. You can use Google, you can use any of your chatbots and AI chatbots that are available to some degree of accuracy, or again, bring it to us. We'll chat with you. We're happy to cover answers for you here. So that's going to be the biggest piece.
Perfect. And just one more time, you mentioned there is going to be a resource that's going to be sent out, correct?
Absolutely.
Perfect.
Absolutely. Perfect. Our marketing team has been hard at work and we'll be sharing something here for it. So
Absolutely.
I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome.
And with that team, you see here, obviously, there are 2 QR demos as well. We would love to chat with you. By all means, feel free to scan, come and say hello. We are here to answer questions and be resources for you. You've got Bryan, of course, from Alliance. You've got myself over here at TipHaus. But our teams would love to chat with you about it. And of course, we will continually, as a group here, try to continually put out resources for you all as these legal challenges happen, as things shift in the space. Alliance and TipHaus here, we're committed to making sure that you guys can focus on all the other 999 problems you have on a daily basis at a hospitality industry and not what's going on the IRS legislation side here. So with that, from my end, I just want to say thank you, Bryan. Hey, thank you.
Thank you so much. Yep, absolutely.
And all of the attendees, thank you so much for jumping in with us. Yes. I hope this was a helpful asset for you.
Awesome.